So at some point in time, we have all taken inspiration from Hogan. Now that might be you guys trying to copy his golf swing, or it might just be golf coaches that have obviously studied his golf swing even very much to this day. Now what we're going to do is we're going to take some inspiration from Hogan. We're going to use some of the visual things that he's highlighted obviously and documented during his era. But the bigger point of this video is very much just to talk about a good backswing position and some of the fundamental things that we should be looking for and getting rid of those traits that are so common with amateur golfers. So there's two topics of this conversation. One of them is going to be width, and should we say the second one is going to be hand path in terms of how your hands should really move in the backswing position. The first thing that's worth highlighting is if I put my hands together in a prayer position, if I move my hands when they go too far away from my body, what will have to happen is that this will have to trigger more rotation of the arms to be able to keep the golf club on plane. Now what this basically means is that if I sort of took my hands out here, then what will happen with most amateurs is they'll start to rotate the club. Now the problem with this is, as you can already see, the club face is pretty volatile early in the backswing position. It'd kind of be like saying, look, show me a simple chip shot, and you're kind of doing this instead of literally just moving the hands to the side of the body. But it is a common amateur problem where the hands go too far out and this triggers too much rotation. Now, if you can focus on your hands working more to the side of your body, what will happen is this will reduce the rotation. And this is quite often the thing that we tend to see with more tour professional golfers, not all, but some, where the hands work much closer to the side of the body. This therefore reduces the rotation of the club face. Now I'm not suggesting that you have to be in this position. There are obviously tolerances as to where you want to get to, but obviously if you can get the feeling of the hands working closer, if you like so, as that club stays more in front, what it is doing is it's getting rid of, I think, a couple of problems. One, the sort of volatile relationship of the club face in the early backswing. But the other problem with golfers that tend to move like this is they tend to stand up. Golfers that can move a little more this way, see the way my trail hip just drops back there, maintaining hip depth, it's going to put you in much better and good stead in that early backswing if you can get the feeling of moving your hands more to the side of your body. But again, with students that I work with, if their hands move more this way, a little closer, you should feel like the club shaft will work up a little bit more vertically, particularly if you're very accustomed to this. And that is absolutely fine. Getting the hands working more in on that early backswing and then up as you swing up will reduce the amount of rotation of the arms. Therefore, it'll keep the club face a lot squarer. And obviously you can mimic that very much in that downswing position as well. But what's important is let's talk about the concept of width. Because the problem that I tend to see with students that try and mimic Hogan's backswing is that they'll just try and copy the flatter nature of the backswing position. So what I mean by this is Hogan was somebody whose arms kind of look something like what I'm sort of demonstrating here. Now obviously if I lift my arms higher, that changes the structure and the nature of how the swing will generally look. Now I think sometimes what happens with a lot of golfers is they look at this position and what they do is they let their arms get too close to the body, so they end up in a position like so. The problem is that we know biomechanically if your arms get too close to your body in the backswing, they're going to get stuck coming in towards the downswing position. And again, with golfers that I've met that have tried to mimic Hogan's golf swing, that's the problem that they tend to have. So the easiest way to rectify that is to just use a bit of string. Lasso the end together, pop it over your head and put your lead arm through. If you then take hold of the surplus of the remainder of the rope to whatever, if you want to practice with something like a 7-iron, just feel like that's exactly what you've got there. Now, as I take this piece of string back, what I'm trying to focus on is two things. The first one is as I take it back, I want to make sure it stays relatively taut, meaning that if I allow my hands to get too close to my body or I swing too much round, this is going to go all sort of floppy, which is what we don't want. We want it to stay like so. Now, as I'm practicing this drill, what I'm also going to practice is the feeling of my hands working more to the side of the body as opposed to working out like this way. And then all of a sudden, the closer my hands work to the side of my body, I'm going to be in a location more like this. And then if I can get my lead hand to join that party, you're going to kind of emulate a position, should we say, more similar to where Hogan was himself. And what we don't want to be doing is anything like this, okay? Now this is when you start to lift that arm a little bit too much as opposed to going into this type of position. The problem if you start to lift your arm too much is it will have this type of effect on the club, as opposed to maybe more this way where the club stays a little bit more on plane. To summarise, the important thing in the backswing, in my opinion, is to reduce too much rotation of the arms in the early part of the backswing, because it will just make squaring the face that much harder coming in towards the downswing. The second thing that you ultimately want to make sure that you're not doing is allowing your arms to get too close towards your body in the backswing, which happens more often than you would really want to know for amateur golfers. This means that as you start the downswing, your arms are going to get stuck. So what I don't want you doing is I don't want you thinking, oh yeah, I'll swing my arms a little closer to me. But what you need to make sure is that you're still applying enough width. And the easiest way to practice that is literally to get yourself a bit of rope or a little bit of string, lasso it together and work on the drill that I've suggested. Now, you can obviously play around this in terms of the feelings that you want to have, and often what you'll tend to know is if you do end up moving where your arms move more to the side of your body and you swing in this position, is that your elbows are obviously going to be closer together. And that's a nice feeling for lots of golfers that I work with. Get the club in a position like so, it does make the downswing much easier than obviously if your elbows are further afield. But hopefully there is enough in this video to understand the benefits of getting your hands working correctly, and also the benefits of understanding how to apply width in the backswing. Because if you can have a good backswing position, you are, I promise you, going to find the downswing so much easier. See you soon.